Okay, we should be recording now. So let's see. I'm sure there'll be some other people coming and going while we're once we get started. But it looks like it's going to be a relatively small group. So you guys feel free to speak up, chime in, ask questions. Let's keep it interactive. Caleb, just to kind of set the table here a little bit. Caleb and I met. Hello. I don't know what that was, but Caleb and I met through he was helping to manage another company that was using SalesNexus, and he did some amazing things with Zapier and connecting SalesNexus to all the other apps they were using in their business. And so that's why we wanted to do this today, so you guys could really see some examples of some of the amazing things Caleb has learned to do with Zapier, both for himself and for SalesNexus, and then also for some clients that he's been working with the last few months. So there's just so much that can be done, and I think it's pretty exciting. And anybody that's kind of wants to dive more deeply into this after the presentation, just feel free to reach out to myself or Caleb, and we can talk about your specific setup. But with that said, Caleb, I'll turn it over to you. You can take it away.
All right. So for anybody who's not familiar with what Zapier is, it's basically a automation workflow system that integrates with thousands of apps. They give you a whole list of apps that you can go through and what kind of things you can do functionally with each one of them. In today's demo, I'm focusing around things like DocuSign and QuickBooks and some of the more most used integrations that we have some integration built into SalesNexus for things like DocuSign and QuickBooks, but this does take it to a whole nother level of capability and hands-off workflow. So I don't have like every single example of our whole business. We could be in here forever going through how Isacard, uses Zapier for every single part, but I do have a few highlights that I wanted to go through. And then I'll go through this overview of how we're using it from a bird's eye view, and then go through how to set up a Zap and get information into Zapier and back into SalesNexus. So this is a diagram actually within Zapier. You're able to build this out to mock up your own workflows and even insert Zaps and start building Zaps in here. So very helpful tool if you're just trying to map it out and figure out what it looks like from a snapshot. But I start with the SalesNexus trigger. That can be some sort of field being updated and an automation plan, starting a campaign that contains this webhook that then sends all the data into Zapier. And Zapier processes that data through different Zaps and can make certain pathing conditions based off of that. So if it was a field that was updated in our system, I do have a table in the system that houses pretty much a copy of a lot of information that exists in SalesNexus. But the main purpose of this is having one Zap that formats all of the different fields. So if you're getting currency fields, it's putting things like dollar signs and stuff like that on that. And then once it's in that table, you don't have to keep calling back to SalesNexus to get information. You can just reference the app. Because every single card in here is a task in Zapier, and each task in Zapier is a cost. So when you get a Zapier account, you get a certain amount of tasks that you're allotted. The free is 100 tasks a month. So trying to limit that down as much as possible is always a smart way to build. So if there's a lot of formatting that has to happen, I do recommend a single Zap that formats everything for you from the get-go, and then you can just keep referencing it. But if I'm changing something like a status of a customer, the stage of a sales opportunity, those have their own webhooks and triggers that are being sent into Zapier. So if it's a loan status update from Isacard, there is several things that can happen. So we catch the webhook. and then I'm supposed to be grabbing from SalesNexus some information about that contact. I do a mild formatting, but based on the sales stage that I had selected in SalesNexus itself, we're able to have these pathing conditions that's looking for that. So if the contact stage equals MOI sent to client and these other conditions, it will take it down this path that sends a specific DocuSign. So you can have hundreds of different templates in DocuSign that you would normally have to go in and manually select based off of the type of deal that you're working in. But this takes all of that picking and choosing yourself out of the equation. It just takes the information that you have in SalesNexus and does the pathing for you. And once it sends that, I have it update the table that the MOI was sent. That then transfers back into SalesNexus. And then I have a little notification email that gets sent to the agents as a separate process that is separate from the contact itself. And so as you can see, there's lots of different conditions in here that I have based on the stage that came from SalesNexus that can take it down different paths and have different DocuSigns being sent, and even in some cases, opportunities being created. So a lot of powerful capability there when it comes to splitting and pathing. There are other things. So when we send that out for Issachar, we're expecting them to sign the DocuSign, and then we get notified once that has signed. It updates SalesNexus that it's signed. That then triggers it into another automation plan that sends another webhook to generate or update an invoice in QuickBooks. So I can have, when the actual payment has been made from the customer, I can update my tables, I can extract that information, format it further, and then put it back into SalesNexus dynamically. So just like a big snapshot overview of how you can take information from SalesNexus and put it in and have many different paths that you can go down. So to give you kind of like a real world view of what that looks like as a user, I'm creating an opportunity for this person. Normally we have an intake form where it actually does this, creates this automatically, creates a sales opportunity with a sales stage of new submission. When that happens, there is an automation plan that's looking for sales stage to be new submission, adds this contact to a campaign, that sends information to Zapier to notify the agent that there was a submission made and the details of that. But I have all sorts of different stages I can move this to. If I change this, if I overview the information in this opportunity, so we have like the terms of this. This is a 12-month loan. And there is a particular agent that it's supposed to be on here and a particular amount. This person's going to loan 25,000. We have some effective dates that we can put in, but this will come later. Types of funds. This is really important. So like for Issachar, the type of funds can determine which kind of contract you get. There's a difference between qualified funds and who needs to receive that contract to deal with the customer. And then there's cash deals where that goes straight to the lender. So just by me selecting that, that's already choosing a path. I can put in some other information. Here, the development property I want this to go into, and some other details. All of this can be used and sent into Zapier to help you determine which of all these many DocuSign templates need to be sent. So as you can see, I do have very, very many. And I have these labeled as cash, qualified funds, and so on. It used to be that I have to go in here and after filled out that loan, I go in and I have to manually select the DocuSign that I want to send. But now, since I already am filling out the loan information for this contact, I change this to MOI sent to client, hit save, and that's going to trigger a webhook to be sent to Zapier that will then go through this Zap. And depending on that stage, so in this case, this is a contact that isn't part of a company. It's a cash client. There's no spouse tied to this. So this is just going down the name path. It will send me the DocuSign, update the records, and send an email to my agent. If I had a company and I was doing a loan under a company, it would go down that path, and then all the different options for qualified funds and such continue. And then this just continues down the line. If I can set up this Zap so that once the DocuSign has been signed, that comes in and changes this to MOI signed, and that can trigger another automation plan and so on. So you can just keep going, not having to actually do anything with the sales opportunity. As customers are signing things, as customers are sending you payments, you can be dynamically updating their sales opportunities, their contact information, whatever it is in the system. Any questions so far? I know that was a lot of information and kind of hard to grasp our exact workflow, but any questions so far?
Yeah, it's amazing. My head's swimming. I don't know about you guys.
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
Is it possible to, like, if Caleb has done all of this work, and if we've got a similar setup, like if we're using QuickBooks and, basically, the DocuSign and all that, can we use that as a template, or you're just showing us how you do it and we still have to do it step by step?
So we would have to look at the exact use case and what you're doing to see if these different Zaps would fit for you. It certainly we can share these. So there is a possibility to share these to other users. So if you have a Zapier account, I just share it to your email, and then you would have access to that. But then I can also come back and help you guys set it up specifically for you and use it more of a starting point. Because just by default, a lot of the way that fields are mapped inside the Zap and whatnot are not going to be the same for every single system.
Right.
So the next part I'm going to go through is like, okay, how do you have to have your SalesNexus system set up in order for this to work properly? But yeah, we can do that, but usually starting from a fresh point is going to be best.
So is there going to be any kind of workflow improvement when you guys finish out the next build of SalesNexus in relation to the Zapier stuff?
We're actually using a lot of concepts of Zapier for this new build. We do have like a lot of more automation capability with our pipelines and whatnot that we're building with the new system.
Yeah.
I do believe we're still planning to have integration with Zapier, but I think Craig, maybe you'd be able to speak more on that. But
yeah, for sure. I mean, that's absolutely will be tied to Zapier, and like Caleb just said, in the new version, there's some vastly improved sort of triggering capabilities. In the current version, you have the automation plans that you can set up, and they trigger campaigns, right? And so to kind of translate what Caleb's been saying for everybody hasn't been into all of these parts of the system yet, the way it has to work today in our current version is if any time that you want something to go from SalesNexus into another app that you're using in your business, what you have to do today is you have to set up a campaign, and within that campaign you have a webhook, and then you set up the automation plan that triggers that campaign whenever the right criteria are met. Say a new contact is added, or somebody's sales stage has changed, or whatever those criteria are. That triggers the campaign, which calls the webhook, which sends the data that you want over to Zapier, which can then send that same data to some other app that you're using in your business. In the new version, that'll be a lot simpler, where you can just say, when this happens, update this field, or when this happens, change a different way to think about it is going the other direction. When something changes in another app, and then you use Zapier to update a field in SalesNexus, well, then that can automatically trigger some kind of change in SalesNexus, like change their sales stage, or assign the lead to someone else or something like that. So just a lot more capabilities there. We're still wrapping our heads around all the ways to apply that.
Right.
Let's see, Caleb, what you showed is just really, I think, very advanced for most of the people on this call, who, probably, I'm assuming most of you guys have barely scratched the surface of playing around with Zapier and all of that. So I'm wondering, Caleb, can you kind of maybe overview some examples of things that you've done for some of our other clients here in the last few months that are a little more, straight ahead?
Yeah, and I was going to just run through a basic example and set up a simple Zap too, just to kind of show. I can still go through that if you'd like.
Yeah, sure. That's great.
Okay. So it's actually going right into what you were talking about, Craig, with creating a campaign. That's really the first thing that you got to do in order to send a webhook and get that information into Zapier. We'll worry about the trigger in a moment. So you'll go to campaigns, create campaign. We'll give it a name. So this is a test Zap. And I'll put today's date for my own record. And at the bottom here, we'll change email to webhook. And this is going to take you to the webhook configuration page when you click add. Taking my system just a second to load. Okay. So in here is where you will end up putting things like the webhook URL that you'll get from Zapier, the name of your template, and then this is showing you which fields will be sent with this webhook. To create your own builds of what fields are being sent, we call those brands. So you can come over to create edit brands, and you'll see I already have some that are related to Zapier. If I select one of these, what you're doing is you're selecting which contact fields in the system, and optionally too, which sales fields in the system as well, that are going to be included in this webhook send. So I can click add field, select any field in the contact field in the system here. If I do team leader, this is the field label within SalesNexus, and then this is what it'll be called in the webhook. So what Zapier reads it as. Usually you can just make those the same thing. And I always set it as required. Just by default, as this is something I'm building, I always want these to be sent, but you don't have to. Caveat for sales fields, these do have to be set to required in order for the webhook to send them. So if you're going to use sales fields, keep that in mind. And then at the bottom here, I can click save. And that will be one of the brands showing up here on the left that you can select. So I can select that brand. That pulls up all these fields that I had selected. I do have simpler ones with just a few bits of information, because there's not all the time you want to send every single little bit of information if you're trying to just do something simple.
Can I interrupt here at this point, just related to what you're talking about?
Sure.
You've talked about in the next build in a couple months that if, for example, if we import a CSV file, SalesNexus will automatically generate the new fields if there are fields that are not already in the database.
Correct.
Is that going to also be reflected in the Zapier side of things, or are we still going to have to manually map the fields in Zapier if we're trying to use it with something else?
So Zapier will, based on the webhook, automatically recognize whatever it's receiving from the webhook. So
Okay.
we're giving it the field build and the value that's in there. It's
Okay.
receiving it as text. So essentially, so it's determined by us. In the future, we might have more of a direct API integrations with Zapier, but we're still in the discovery phase of that for sure. There's ways of even having Zapier displayed in SalesNexus. So, but that's definitely on down the road. It'll be a lot easier to build these out in the new app for sure.
Okay.
So to get the webhook URL, I'm going to go into Zapier. This is the home page. You can just click create and zap. And that will bring you to here. This is a new feature. I haven't necessarily played around with it too much, but apparently you're able to describe what you want your workflow to be, and it'll kind of pre-build you out the different cards, the triggers and actions for you. But if we're just building this manually, you click the top trigger, and we're going to select webhooks. This is a Zapier premium feature, so keep that in mind too. But if we select webhook, we would always want to do catch hook. We can skip this page, and this gives us our webhook URL. So you copy that, come back into SalesNexus, and you can paste it right in there and save. Now that webhook is saved into this campaign. Save campaign only. That gives us the option to automate this now. So this is where we can now determine what the trigger for this webhook is going to be. I'm going to go ahead and click that. It gives you the same name as the campaign. I'm going to say that when the status field equals client, and in my case, I use sales fields as well, and the sales stage equals new submission. That's going to trigger that contact that I was showing before to be added to this campaign when those fields are actually updated. I'm going to set this as retroactive so that I can get any contacts that already match this to go ahead and send. It'll give you a little warning for retroactive. Okay. And set that to play as well. So when that fires off, that's going to trigger the webhook that for that campaign for any contact that matches that criteria. And in Zapier, you just hit test trigger, and it'll continue to wait for that webhook. So you can kind of monitor these happening by going into notes and seeing when the notes actually fire, and or into any contacts you expect to be sent. So let me go into real quickly just to show you what that catch looks like. So it'd give you a record, and then it would display all the fields that you had sent in the webhook, just like that. And you're able to use those as kind of like individual fields in Zapier. And
so is everybody following that? You guys understand what's happening there and kind of the general gist of it?
Yeah.
Good.
Okay.
Yeah,
so once it catches that hook, you'll be able to use all those fields however you want. So if I open up something like I want to send a DocuSign, I will pull up DocuSign, choose the action event. So once this webhook is received, I'm wanting to send a template or an envelope, they call it, using a template. So I have pre-built templates in DocuSign. You have to make sure you add your account, which for DocuSign, it is as simple as logging in.
Yeah, it's usually that or easy, really. You just connect your other app,
Right.
just like this.
Let's see if that actually took it. Yes, it did. Okay. Yeah, most of the time it is that easy. Sometimes it'll ask for the API key from that other app, and usually that other app will give you some pretty good documentation to be able to get that. So if I continue here, I can select the template in DocuSign. So this is where I predetermine which document is going to be sent. And this is also where that pathing can come in really in handy. So I'll kind of back up in just 1 second, but I'm going to say this is the 6-month cache. With DocuSign, it sends an email to the customer, so you're able to put in the email subject and email body. But as you can see, here's the fields that are actually within the DocuSign template that I can now insert my variable data that I receive from the catch hook into here. So I really should have a different page loaded up to show what that looks like. If I just go into any of these, you can see what that looks like. So I can go into any of these fields and insert my dynamic data that I got from my webhook. So in this case, it's just 2 different fields, but you put that in there. So this is the actual like project name when we were building the webhook and we were giving it that label. That's what that is, how you'll be able to identify it. So you fill this out with all your dynamic data. So if I have the contact's email and I'm passing that field in the webhook, I would put that field in there, and I would just continue to fill this out. So like I have sales amount fields, account number fields, company names, just continuing to insert the dynamic fields. And you're able to then test the actual DocuSign send that will send a document to this test record that you have set up and be able to view it. And so that's just a simple 1-2. When I catch the hook, it's going to send that one DocuSign with that field information. If it was the other way around, now I'm okay. Now I'm waiting for that DocuSign to be sent. We would be setting up a Zap where the trigger is actually DocuSign. So I'm going to make this trigger DocuSign, and I can select a trigger event. So when the envelope was completed, I have some options here. If I want to include the certificate of completion, the included documents, recipients, all of those different fields, I'm able to view and see. I test that. We may even see some recently completed documents in here.
So this is the example you're doing here is kind of like when the document's signed, update SalesNexus.
Exactly. Yep.
Based on that.
Yep. It's taken a long time for the test to run. There it goes. So it'll give you a few records to go off of, A, B, and C. And you can click on it to see what the data is that you're receiving. So you even get what the email subject was and everything that was sent for that original document. All the filled in fields. So if they had to fill things into the document, you get that in here as well for you to be able to use. So not only can I update just the status field of the contact or something after this, I can also put in what the person actually filled in the DocuSign into various fields in the system. So I can continue with that. And then I'm going to change this to SalesNexus. This is where we are directly integrated, and choose some events. So as you can see, you can create activities using Zapier, contacts, create notes, opportunities, and of course, update both contacts and opportunities. There is just a find opportunity search as well that allows you to pull that information and then utilize it for your Zap. But if you're even wanting to create contacts, most of the time I recommend using update contact, because if the contact doesn't exist, it will create one using the field information that you put in. And then if it can, it will update that contact. So a lot of times that is my go-to, unless I know for sure that this is all I want to do is create a contact. Select my SalesNexus account. Continue. And here I have the fields that I have been for contacts. These are contact fields that I have chosen to show to Zapier. And I'll show you how that's set up in a second. So I can take any of those fields that I got from DocuSign and update any of these fields that I have in SalesNexus. And if your custom fields don't show up on here, there is a way to configure that in SalesNexus to show up. So if for whatever reason I wanted the company field to always fill in with that dynamic information, I would select that. For the update contact, it does match on email address. So that's something to always make sure that you're passing along with any of your Zaps that have to do with updating SalesNexus is the contact's email. So just something to keep in mind there. And then, of course, you're able to then test that after the fact. Let's see.
Sorry, go ahead.
The only other thing I was going to mention just real quick was the paths. So you can add a path step. And this is where you can put in those different conditions that say, based on that envelope, I actually want it to be determined that the type of envelope. So there is a field in here for the document's name. So this was a partial repayment form. I wanted to update the contact in a particular manner. If it was a different form, I can set that condition to look for that document name and update the contact in that way. So, and you can keep building out these paths like crazy, as I showed in the beginning.
What questions do you guys have?
I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, it's really dependent on the apps that you're trying to integrate with, right?
Yeah.
So you just find what fields you have available, and then you just map them accordingly.
Yep.
Yeah. Let's see. Caleb, real quick, I'm just going to show something on my screen, if that's okay. Because I don't know about you guys, but this all kind of blows me away. So I worry that we're going too deep too fast, you know. Caleb got it all worked out in his mind, and what he's done with Issachar is just crazy, intricate. But the great thing about Zapier, honestly, just from my personal experience, is that it's super easy to get started with. You don't need Caleb's help, right, to set up your first app. It's pretty easy. And I just wanted to show you guys an example with the easiest kind of Zap to set up with SalesNexus is where you have another app that you want to update SalesNexus with information from that app, right? Then you don't have to mess with the campaigns and the webhooks and all of that stuff. It's just set up a Zap and it works. And so I just wanted to show you guys an example of that. This BizConnect is a business card scanner. It's an app that you put on your phone. And so when you get a business card, you snap a photo and it uploads it into their cloud service where it gets transcribed. And then this Zap takes that transcribed business card information and automatically creates a new contact in my SalesNexus account. And then I have it set up so that triggers a follow-up campaign. Hey, nice to meet you at the event today, blah, 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 right? But I just wanted you guys to see that. All you're doing is, like Caleb showed earlier, you're connecting to your BizConnect account just by putting in your logon credentials. And then you connect that to SalesNexus. And then when you're configuring it over here, you're just mapping the fields in BizConnect to fields in SalesNexus. So like here, I haven't mapped the contact yet, right? So I would go here and, you know, type in contact or first name, whatever. Let's see. There we go. Now, there's my first name, you know, and I put in the SalesNexus field that should go into, right? And so we're basically doing the reverse of what Caleb was doing earlier. And then the other thing I wanted to show you is down here, lead source, call status. These are fields that in our database, our SalesNexus database, are really important in how we kind of categorize where a lead came from and what's its status and all of that, right? BizConnect doesn't have those fields at all, right? So what I wanted to do is have the lead source always be BizConnect when it adds a new contact. And that way I can always identify all my leads that came from BizConnect, right? So you just add that field, and then you can put in a value. You don't have to map it to a specific field in SalesNexus. You're putting in a value to put in there, if that makes sense. So that's just another sort of technique that helps you keep everything organized the way you want. And sometimes that'll have a lot to do with triggering the right follow-up campaign and all of that. But that's it. Once you're done with that mapping, you hit continue, and it's going to test it for you, just like Caleb has already done. And then you're done, and you publish it, and it starts working. And what I've always been really impressed with Zapier is that once it starts working, it's real stable. You don't have to sit there and babysit it. It doesn't break a couple times a week, you know. And the platform's really good about letting you know when there is a problem as well, and it'll give you an error log and all that. So if you do have to troubleshoot, it's pretty easy to do. So I just wanted you guys to see a real simple example as well. But that's anybody have any questions about that?
I've got a question. So let's say you've got a number of users in your account, and someone wants to use BizConnect and someone else may want to use a different similar service.
Sure.
How does that work on an overall account basis?
You could, on one hand, you could have each user could be setting up their own Zap, right?
Okay.
That's one way to do it.
Okay.
Or you might have one Zap that you create at a corporate level, and then you're setting up rules, kind of like Caleb was showing you, to distribute those leads to different sales reps depending on whatever the criteria are.
Okay. Are you guys also familiar with, it's a service very similar to Zapier, but in some ways I think it's more powerful and it's definitely more cost effective. It's called Boost Space. Are you guys familiar with it at all?
Yeah, we've heard about it for sure. I don't know, Caleb, we haven't really talked about the nitty gritty of this related to the new version, but the way I'm kind of seeing it is we'll connect the new version to Zapier first.
Yeah.
Once we've done that, then connecting to some of these other platforms, similar platforms, should be relatively straightforward.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and real quickly, going back to the other question you had about several accounts. So I can like with the different pathing, right? So a specific person is supposed to get it based on a condition. Each one of these cards are separate. So in the setup, I can have a different SalesNexus login. So when you connect to SalesNexus account, you're putting in the actual user that you're connecting to, not the account as a whole. So that's where you can determine who's receiving that update.
And you could, in the setup process, if you're working with something where it's a really complicated configuration, you could save that as a default template and then just enter the the basic credentials for a different sales rep. Correct.
Right. Correct.
Okay.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely.
Efficiency.
Yep. And then just the last thing, really, in terms of your setup, because this in terms of what fields show up in Zapier, the way you determine that is going over to organize and customize, and then going to whatever field that you don't see currently, like age might not show up. You just go into the field and then click the available in Zapier button and save. And then you'll see that as an option in Zapier from then on by clicking the refresh button there. And so that goes for contact fields, sales fields. It's the same way of getting it in available in Zapier.
Right.
Let's see. So the what's powerful about Zapier at beyond just connecting two different apps is that you can really use it as an intermediary to sort of process data for you. So Caleb, you kind of alluded to earlier how it can be used to sort of format the data so that it's, you got data coming in one format from one app, and it needs to be in a slightly different format in order to be compatible with the other app that you're sending it into, right?
Right.
But
and you can do things like add these fields together. Like, so if you need it to do math, you can do that as well for like commissions or something like that.
yeah. So, if like you could create essentially a spreadsheet in Zapier where the math is happening and you're making calculations, and then you have triggers essentially in Zapier based upon the results of the math, right?
Right. Exactly.
So,
yeah, if it's within certain ranges or something like that. Yep.
So if the commission is over $20,000, then do this special thing or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. Paths are incredibly powerful. Is really what makes it automated, because you can, instead of a lot, like when I first started building in Zapier, I kept making just like individual zaps for individual triggers. But you can go from, if it's all the same field, and just depending on what that one field is, you can do all sorts of different things just with one zap.
And that affects your price as well that you're paying the Zapier too, right?
Yes, and in terms of that, I've found, like before Zapier, I was doing a lot of the manual day-to-day work with emailing these lenders, emailing the agent, sending out documents, doing all of this. It took it from, this was an 8 to 10 hour a day job, to I monitor it. Sometimes I work 30 minutes a day. So in terms of like the actual cost of having,
you don't
to
want
pay
to tell that
somebody
to Craig, who's paying your salary, though.
Well, this is my other boss. So just the value add of the time saved, and then I was making a lot of mistakes, putting in the wrong names, putting in the wrong account numbers, doing just basic, sending the wrong DocuSign. This took out all of that. It just seamlessly handled all of the documentation work, all of the accounting work, and anything that's volatile, and if it's wrong, it's a big deal, kind of thing. So the value add for me was huge.
Yeah, I mean, on some level, Caleb, when you were setting all this up for Issachar, some of what you were doing was wherever SalesNexus had a limitation that wouldn't let you do what you wanted to do within SalesNexus, you would just create a zap to move the data into Zapier, process it, and manipulate it however you needed, and then put it back into SalesNexus, right?
Right. A lot of times it was not connecting to another app. It was simply manipulating the data in SalesNexus and based on the information in there, changing the stages, changing some fields value. Because that is something that, like Craig was saying with the automation plans, it triggers a campaign and that sends information out. But we don't have a way in the system to say, hey, if this field is updated to this, change this field to this. So that's where a lot of the power came from, in terms of automation, moving opportunities forward in their stages automatically without me having to go into the field and change it every time. So
Right.
Mhm.
Who has like an example? Anybody have an example of something you're trying to do that you want to get Caleb's input on how to do it? Susan, it looks like you're talking, but you're muted.
Hi.
There you go. Now we got you.
Yeah, no, we're working through some things, and I'm glad of it. This is heavy tech for me, but I can certainly see how all those processes. I like that idea, and that's how I've always seen the Zapier uh, process to do the thing you can't get your systems to do and glue it together.
Mm-hmm.
And we're still seeing, so a couple different ideas have come to me already when I'm looking at how to manage our sales team and some things that can make it easier for them. We don't want their existence in sales to be just data entry. So this solves a lot of that, by making some things just automate, in particular, just for us having, we're also going to use the groups function and be able to really look at each one of the areas that we serve in a much more comprehensive way. So I'm curious to see everything that this tool can do, and learn how it can really serve our needs. I haven't put a whole lot of thought into that, actually.
Just for everybody, I put the link to book a meeting with Caleb in the chat of this meeting. So if you want to dive into a specific use case or scenario that you're trying to set up and see if Caleb can help you with it, that's an easy way to do that.
All right.
Thank you.
Sure. And then Caleb, Susan kind of made me think, have you ever tried just connecting with like Google Calendar to trigger updates once you have a meeting with a customer?
I haven't, but that should be super simple to do.
Yeah, that would be very helpful for me, right? Because I'm already using Calendly and I meet with people all day long. So that, and then I have to turn around and enter this data from the meeting. So that would already track that data. That's cool.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, there's all sorts of good trigger events, from Google Calendar to it being canceled, to when the event ended. So it's tracking the actual activity of the event as it's happening, which is cool.
Wow.
And all of that can be used and be constantly updating SalesNexus with that info. I have also seen for like complicated data input, if you're getting things via spreadsheets, it does connect to like Google Sheets. We have another customer that did that where he was getting sheets from this provider. There was no API, webhook integration or anything like that. He just got spreadsheets. We set up a table in Zapier for him to upload that spreadsheet into, and that created contacts and sales opportunities automatically for him, without having to go through our import tool or anything like that. He just loaded in the spreadsheet and it did everything for him. It was doing things, scheduling tasks and everything.
Oh.
Yeah, and another use case that comes up pretty often with customers is if you're advertising on, social media platforms like Facebook or other similar. A lot of them, the ads will perform better if you're using their built-in registration form, rather than having the visitor go to your website to sign up and request info or whatever. So you can use in Facebook's case, the little form that they provide within their platform. So the visitor doesn't have to leave Facebook. But then you can connect that form to SalesNexus via a Zap. Like we just started doing some Facebook ads, and that's what I did there. So all the registrations from the ads go straight into SalesNexus automatically.
Yep. And if you don't even have a form, Zapier also has the option for interfaces. So you can actually build forms that you can put onto your website or anything like that. That can then, since it's in Zapier already, it's bringing all that data in, and then you can manipulate it however you want to.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, we'll definitely be able to use that, Caleb, with everything we're doing with Data Pulse and Reach Response. That comes out in a spreadsheet format that we were talking about the other day. So to be able to pull that right in here, that would be tremendous.
Right. Yep. Yeah, and even like if Zapier isn't already integrated with something, there is API cards that you can even put in. If you're a little knowledgeable on API connections, it's usually just keys and things like that. I've had to do that too for custom built apps and whatnot, but I've been able to use Zapier to collect that info or send to it too.
Sweet.
Let's see. What else? Anybody have any other questions or anything? No?
Nope.
If I could get that link to chat after the call, just to configure my free email addresses, that would be great.
Yeah, Sabrina will shoot you an email for y'all to connect.
Okay.
And then we'll put the recording of this meeting into a follow-up email that'll go out probably tomorrow. So you guys can reference that. And if we can help with anything, feel free to reach out to any of us.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Big time. Larry's going to love being able to see this. He gets in soon and from Alaska, and he'll want to look at all of this. Excellent.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it, guys. I'm going to let you go.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Thank
Y'all
you.
have a great afternoon. Thanks, Caleb.
No problem.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Caleb.